This
All right,
conference will now be recorded.
let's go ahead and get started. Holly, could you please call roll? And if all board members could introduce themselves, that would be fantastic.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Wendy Hess,
Here, Woodbury County Communications Center representing communications.
Travis Solom,
Here, LECOM, representing communications.
Bridget Edson,
Bridget Edson, present. Chickasaw County Rescue, representing EMS.
Mindy Benson,
Present. Mindy Benson, Blackhawk County Emergency Management Coordinator, representing Iowa Emergency Managers.
Michelle Bischoff,
Present. I work for the Des Moines Fire Department and represent Iowa Pro Chiefs.
Curtis Woughton,
Present with Blacksburg Fire and Rescue representing volunteer fire departments.
David Ness,
Present Des Moines Police, representing municipal police.
Dan Schaefer,
Present, Lake City Police, representing municipal police.
Dan Fank,
Present, Worth County Sheriff's Office, representing sheriff's offices.
Rhonda Broaddus, Cindy Hike,
Cindy Hike, representing Iowa Health and Human Services.
Daniel Brown,
Present, representing the Iowa Department of Transportation.
Michael Strausser, Heath Hove,
Present, Iowa Department of Public Safety.
Patrick Updike,
Patrick Updike, Iowa Department of Corrections.
Blake Jerushi,
Present, representing Iowa Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management.
Jessica Turba.
Present, representing the state CIO.
And do we have any legislative members on the phone? Okay, we do have a quorum.
Michelle, you're muted.
Thank you. Rhonda Broaddus is here. She's using the chat to communicate as she has little to no voice. So I'm monitoring the chat, so we'll take care of it that way. Thank you all for attending. Appreciate your time and hope you're all safe and sound. And we can make it through one more Thursday snowstorm. I'll entertain a motion for today's agenda.
Benson.
Woughton will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Approval of the minutes from the February 9th meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
Fank will make a motion.
Okay, I heard Fank. A second?
Solom.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That brings us to the SWIC report. SWIC Nichols.
Thank you, Chair Bischoff. Good morning, everybody. I just have a regular report. I'll start with the training opportunities coming up this year. The Audio Gateway course registration is live. That will be held April 18th and 19th at the DPS Orem-Pate building. There are a maximum of 10 seats available for the hands-on training, and we already have 9 registrants as of this week. The Communications Unit Leader course registration is also live now. That will be held in Cedar Rapids at the fire station May 22nd through the 25th. There are still seats available for that. The prerequisites for that course include ICS 300, as well as the online courses available through FEMA IS 100, 200, 700, and 800. In June, on the 19th through the 23rd, a communications technician course will be held in Spencer, and the incident tactical dispatch course will be held in Pottawatomie County, October 3rd through the 6th. Save the dates for those classes if you're interested, and share that information with others. I have submitted a Homeland Security Grant Program application to receive an additional 25 cache radios. These are standby radios that can be deployed to support regional incidents. We currently hold a cache of 25 radios that are housed at VPS, and those have been used for events such as RAGBRAI in the past. If we're approved, it would lessen the need to borrow additional radios from the National Guard, which we've had to do. We also want to make sure that ISIX users know that these cache radios are available if the need arises. If you have any planned interop training with an agency not on the system who might benefit, would be a good opportunity for them. We had Davis County coverage testing that went very well. The portables worked in every area that they took us to that they're currently having problems with on their own system. We'll be doing more coverage testing in some southern counties in the next few months. There was a training presented to the Guthrie County Board of Supervisors. Deputy Swick Walser and Comms Manager Erpelding went with me and helped share information on core connected ISIX consoles. And ISIX training was presented by DPS staff to the Iowa National Guard. The committees have been working on the Tactical Interoperable Communications Plan, or TICP. Final edits have been submitted to the contractor after review, and the Iowa FOG is in review over this next month. So that's been sent out. It's on a Google Drive, and you can make your comments or edits to that right there in Google so we can track everybody's comments, and then we will look at that in committee over this next month. April 6th, we will be holding an Iowa-Illinois interstate interoperability meeting to pick back up where the two states left off in creating standards for working interoperably. We expect to build off the groundwork in place with Minnesota currently. And the credentialing of comm leaders will occur at the next in-person meeting. That had to be moved again. And so that ends my report unless there are any questions.
Great. Thank you, Chair Nichols. Appreciate all the information and all the hard work. That brings us to the 911 Council Report. Program Manager Darushi.
Thank you. It was a fairly short report that I gave the 911 Council meeting prior to this, but strangely enough, a lot of the things I'm going to recap here as well, I think they are pertinent. Senate File 181 was not a 911 specific related bill that passed and was signed into law earlier this year. However, it does have some 911 budget implications. It does extend the deadline for local 911 service boards to certify their budgets to April 30th for this particular year only. That bill was more specifically a property tax bill, but again, it has some strange tie-ins to 911 budgets. So that deadline has been extended to April 30th. If local 911 service boards want to get those submitted prior to that, there's nothing wrong with that either. It just kind of gives them a little bit more grace time. April 19th, we are looking to hold the latest version of the PSAP leadership training. That course has been held 2 times previously. It's mostly the same. We'll continue to update that throughout time. So there might be some small changes with this offering, but if you've taken that previously, you probably don't need to do it again. However, if you have not taken that, it might be a good opportunity to do so. We really do focus on 911 related topics at the PSAP. So not really radio, not really, how do you make a schedule for your telecommunicators? It's kind of more the technology behind the 911 side. We'll also record that and post that to our Google shared site for people who might not be able to attend on the 19th. Last month, we held our cyber awareness webinar for PSAPs. I had 2 different offerings of that course through with CISA. About 30 attendees participated in that. That also is recorded and posted to our Google shared site for PSAPs if they are interested in watching that after the fact. Finally, I've talked about this previously, but wanted to give everyone an update. We've worked with our bordering states to enable cross-border 911 call transfers. So that would be complete with callback number and location information. It's a little bit different than how it's been done previously. A lot of times that callback number and location gets stripped out of transfers. So what we're doing, it basically replicates an in-state transfer, so they get all that good data. So Minnesota, the bordering counties with our northern border has been completed. That's all up and running. South Dakota and Nebraska are about 30 days out, so those bordering counties with those two states can expect that upgrade here in about 30 days. And then Illinois is about 60 days out. There is the other states do have a fairly large role to play in this as well. They have to be at a certain readiness level as well. So if you'll notice, Missouri and Wisconsin are a little bit further behind on their readiness to do this. As soon as they are ready, we will be too. So those bordering counties can get turned up as well. So that concludes my briefing. I would take any questions.
Thank you, Blake. Any questions regarding the 911 Council report? User Group Committee, Vice Chair Dennert is on vacation. He did submit a report to me, however. There are 2 applications for our consideration. One is the North Central Correctional Facility in Rockwell City for a level 2, and Hancock County is upgrading from 3 to 4. So those will be items for us to consider later in the meeting, and otherwise it was a standard user group committee. Are there any questions regarding the user group? All right, moving forward, the finance chair, Chair Brown.
Thank you, Chair Bischoff. The Finance Committee did meet, and we submit the following expenses and/or funds available on the sheet that's on the screen. Looks like we have 195.72.79 left for funds. If there are any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. I'm new on that, so
and we appreciate you. And we appreciate you stepping up and filling that chair position. Are there any questions for finance? Great, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Bischoff.
Next is the Governance Committee. Nichols, easy for me to say.
Okay, yeah, I'm ready to give that report. It was a standard meeting on March 6th. We reviewed SCIP objectives, and we are going to start reviewing current policy just to ensure those are up to date as those objectives state that we should do. The next meeting will be April 3rd, and that's the end of my report.
Are there any questions for governance? Next is Operations Committee, and I chair that committee currently. The Operations Committee this month reviewed the TICP, as was mentioned in Swick Nichols' monthly update, and we'll at our next meeting we'll review the FOG. There is continued movement on the ORAP effort. If you'll remember, the ORAP effort was a TA request that was fulfilled or accepted to review the current ambulance to hospital communication, which currently uses CMED, to see if there were ways in which we could leverage ISICs to improve that communication. So this is doing a needs assessment. We'll do some small scale training as well as large scale training to prove that concept out. We received an update from that group, a report based on the initial needs assessment that was gathered. So that is moving along, and all of that effort is occurring in Carroll County. So just give everyone an update on that as well, since that came out of operations. And that is my report for operations. Are there any questions regarding the activity of operations? Next is outreach. Swick Nichols.
Thank you, Chair Bischoff. There was a standard meeting on February 27th. Again, we reviewed the mission, goals, and objectives of the committee as written in the SCIP. The goals include communications with legislators, and so we're going to move in that direction as we move forward, and that ends my report. If there's any questions, please let me know.
Great, thank you. And I think we'll stick with you for the training committee report as well.
Sure. So we had a good training and exercise committee meeting. We talked about status board and that there seemed to be a need. We've heard in a couple other meetings that brought forth that it might be a good time to review that and find a way to get training to dispatchers so that they know that that resource is available and exactly how to use it. So we will be looking at the current training and if we need to update or review it, and then find ways to push that out, including probably in the newsletter. It was also mentioned that it would be great if we could find opportunities to create and coordinate interop exercises, just to know which agencies that surround specific users are on the system and how they utilize it and how best to work with them. I'll take any questions.
Great, thank you, Swick Nichols. Appreciate it. Moving on, Technology Committee, Chair Updike.
Thanks. The Technology Committee met on February 23rd and March 7th. We've been reviewing the TICP and submitted, well, you heard Swick Nichols, so she got the information from us, and so it's up for further review that way. The next step is to review the Iowa Field Operations Guide, just like operations. So we'll follow up with that as we move forward. In part of our conversations of that TICP review, we were reminded of the ICS 217B or whatever it's going to be that addresses the trunk system resources, i.e., all of the regional and state talk groups as well as sub-regional. I have a couple of committee members that are getting that information pieced together, and then we will push that over to operations so that it reflects all of that information, specifically the sub-regional talk groups, because our first three drafts did not include that at the time. So be watching for that. I think as we move forward, we'll let the board know where we're at, and then we'll push that out, hopefully, under the ICS 217A that's out there now for conventional resources, and more to follow on that. We're still working on the discipline-specific encryption. We did push the off-system conventional channels off to operations for review. Hopefully, we'll get to look into the on-system side of that for discipline-specific encryption. May or may not include the addition of more talk groups, but more to follow with that. We're still working with the gateway inventory part. Some future things coming up is we're going to start looking at Part 90 eligibility and system capacity issues that may exist for users that come in with a light inventory, but potentially move up to a a higher number of subscriber units. And I would use DOC as an example because we have multiple facilities that are coming in with just a few users, but there is the potential in the future that they could add a lot more additional subscriber units. So we want to dig into that topic, and that's all I have for right now.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. All of your efforts are greatly appreciated. It's a heavy load that technology is bearing and investigating, and we appreciate your efforts.
Thanks.
Are there any questions for technology?
Michelle, I had one, and maybe it's him or you or both. Just curious on the timing of the discipline specific. I know that there's several priorities, and goodness, appreciate technology's willingness. I think they meet twice a month, which is tremendous. But I think here in the metro, there may be several different entities that are looking at upgrading or updating rather their radios, and so I was curious if we thought that was within at least at a pilot level in the SR1, if that's going to be possible within a month or two, or if we anticipate a longer process than that.
I would hope that once we can get to this field operations guide review, I mean, we're going to definitely pick that subject back up. As far as the off-system resources go, I would defer to Michelle in operations, as far as their thoughts on those conventional resources for that. But we're definitely going to pick up the on-system topic ASAP, and I would hope that we can get something done here in the next couple months.
And in regards to the operations review, we did review what technology had submitted. There were some questions, suggestions, recommendations that, Patrick, I think I've sent to you. Is that accurate?
I'm going to have to dig in my email. I can't remember.
I was going to say, well, you and I can follow up on it offline and make sure. Yeah. I know we had the conversation in operations. I think I've sent the comments to technology because what came out of operations was more of a, hey, we think you ought to consider, and I don't remember the details, so I'm not gonna try to espouse what those details were. And so I think there's a bit of a give and take here that we need to have, whether that's asynchronously or if we need to have a joint meeting to hash it out synchronously. We can do that, but that's where we're at. But as has been mentioned, getting the field operating guide and keeping that project moving along has a higher priority at the moment. Operations was able to get through the TICP in one meeting. I would anticipate us getting through the FOG in one meeting, but we only meet once a month, so that's the earliest we could get to it would be May.
Okay, that's great. Appreciate the additional, and I should have been more specific. The on system was probably more of the interest, since that would require the programming changes, but greatly appreciate the update and your
so you're
continued
probably
efforts.
3 months out. 3 months out for on system.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Are there any other questions for technology? Next on our agenda is the FirstNet Broadband Committee. That committee has not met this month. We meet next week, and we'll be having Andy Sackrider, the network engineer for our state, to give us a report on what's been accomplished, as well as what the future looks like as far as the infrastructure of FirstNet is concerned. Are there any questions regarding FirstNet? Other reports, information sharing from the board. First up, we're going to have a presentation from Dan. Dan, I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name. Are you on the
No,
call?
no problem. Yep, can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you
Okay.
introduce yourself for us, and other than me butchering your last name?
Yep, you bet. My name is Don Sitker. I'm with the Department of Public Safety as the Bureau Chief for the Governor's School Safety Bureau. So I appreciate the time today. Captain Pierce kind of asked that I give you guys an update, and I think it's definitely worthy of your time just to give you a heads up on our Bureau, specifically on the threat reporting tool that we're offering to all our K through 12 schools that should launch here on March 21st. So if you're not familiar with what that tool is, it's a threat reporting tool that students, teachers, and parents can utilize to make school safety threat concerns, reports to law enforcement, that helps identify weapons in school, acts of violence, self-harm, those kind of victimization issues that students are facing these days. So with our launch, we'll actually host a webinar. If you haven't received an email, hopefully you get a hold of me and I can get it to you. But this Friday at 11 o'clock, I'll host a webinar for all our PSAPs, our law enforcement agencies, and our EMAs to kind of give them a heads up on the program, since it will probably affect most everyone in the communication realm. So how Safe and Sound works is you can go to our website, safeandsoundiowa.gov. You can kind of get a preview of what it's going to look like. But it'll be rolled out to schools on the 21st of March. The program allows students to make reports via a website and mobile application or by calling our dispatch centers. Those reports will be monitored 24 hours a day by our state radio dispatch centers, primarily in Storm Lake and Cedar Falls. Once we receive a tip, our goal is to ingest the information, engage in two-way dialogue with that tipster through our dispatch center, and then provide that information to the local PSAP to get to the local law enforcement jurisdiction that oversees that school. So what it means for dispatch centers is our dispatchers will be making verbal handoffs. So we'll make a verbal phone call to a PSAP if you get a school threat in your area, letting you know that we received a school threat. We'll request an email address to share that tip information with that PSAP so they can get it to their local law enforcement. And then, of course, we would provide investigative assistance if the local jurisdiction should need it. So with this being remote, I really don't have a full presentation, but if you're able to chime in for that webinar on Friday, I'll give you a pretty good overview of the program. Once it launches on the 21st, it'll be a public media launch, so everybody should be aware of it. Schools will then be sent an information packet on how to implement the program in their schools. So we provided them with a presentation they can provide to students, handouts for their parents, tutorial videos, everything they should be able to self-deploy within their own school district. There's no requirement to sign up on this. We've had about 600 schools statewide indicate they're going to use the program. But even if your school is not utilizing our program called Safe and Sound, there is potential that you're going to receive a tip. Since it is an open access application, even if a school doesn't advertise it, a student or parent could download the app and then submit information on it. So if we get information, law enforcement's our default. We would share that information with the local law enforcement. If the school has signed up, they will also get information that we received a tip, reference their school. Of course, we won't share child abuse or sexual abuse or any information that they wouldn't be privy to. But if it's a general threat to their school district, they would get that information at the same time. So I guess I'll kind of open it up for questions. But like I said, if the webinar that I'm hosting on Friday will be recorded, I know that there's some EMA meetings and some other things that are going to conflict with that time. So we'll record the webinar, and then I'll make sure I'll send that out to the email distribution list that I sent the original invite out to. With that, I'll open it for questions. I think, Michelle, you're still maybe muted.
Yep, I sure was. Thank you. So the link, Joe Willoughby put the link to Safe and Sound Iowa in the chat, so that's available for everyone. What questions do we have regarding the Governor's School Safety Bureau and the Safe and Sound Iowa? Like
I said, if questions come up later on, you can definitely reach Joe or I directly on that. we're hoping that this won't be more of a burden. It's, just information that was probably going to be submitted another way, but we wanted to give students a means to report, through a text message or through a chat group that they're more comfortable with than actually speaking with someone in person. So, if you do receive a tip through your PSAP or your comm center, please note, we're just not dumping the tip on you. If it's something that we can provide assistance with that specific tip, we definitely will. But we know that local law enforcement in the area has the best probably pulse of what's going on with their community, and most likely will be able to work most of these. But if there's legal service or, investigative services we can provide, we're definitely here to help. With that, I'll end it if there's no questions.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate all your efforts in getting this program together and sharing it with us. Best to keep everyone appraised of what's happening. So much appreciated. Thank you. A question has come in. Is there a direct contact with PSAPs when a tip is reported?
Right. So if we receive a tip through our dispatch center, through the program, we'll make and say it's in your jurisdiction. Our dispatchers will then contact the PSAP in that area directly, verbally, to say that a tip was received, and then ask for an email so that we get that verbal confirmation that that area is aware of the tip and that they understand what it is. A lot of these are going to be time sensitive. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. So if we receive a tip in your community, we'll call over to the PSAP that has jurisdiction for that school, verbally indicate that we have a tip, and then ask for an email to actually send the tip over. And that tip will include everything that reporting party provided, whether it's media attachments, the chat conversation that the dispatcher had with the reporting party, and any social media that they provided.
Great. Rhonda, does that answer your question? Her follow-up is if their PSAP do not have admin messaging through NCIC, that's a quicker route to ensure delivery.
Michelle, it's Erin
Yeah.
Speck from Cedar Falls DPS. I can answer that question for Rhonda.
Okay, thanks.
The school safety tip line will be monitored at all of the state call centers. So Cedar Falls and Storm Lake will be the primary, with Cedar Rapids and Des Moines as backup. We do have access to the TTY messaging. And depending on the type of call, if it's a immediate life threat, we may use the regional call channels as well to relay that information to the PSAPs and then follow up with an email with the information.
Great. Thank you, Erin. Appreciate it. Rhonda, does that? Okay. Yeah, Rhonda says that makes sense. Thanks.
Good. Erin's definitely more versed on that specifics than I am. So thank you for chiming in there, Erin.
Are there any other questions? Great. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you sharing this information with us, and Erin for sharing your knowledge as well as to how the system is going to work with the PSAPs. Much appreciated. Is there any other information sharing among board members? I have one topic. It's been discussed, and I'd kind of like to hear some feedback about combining outreach and training into one committee. Thoughts on doing that? Pro or against combining that committee? Just make a little better use of our resources and volunteer members and chair positions as well, and reports, and just the whole works. That most of our outreach is being done through training. That's the thought process. That it makes some sense to combine those. At least that's the thinking. Is anyone opposed to combining those two committees?
Michelle, when I think I brought this up a few months ago, and it was a time when we had you and a few others covering several committees, and it just seemed like a more efficient way since there was obvious overlap. Since then, we reached out to committee members, or I'm sorry, to board members, and there was significant volunteerism and willingness to participate. And I have not participated in the training or the outreach committee, but I still think, although I greatly appreciate everybody's willingness to participate however needed, we still want to be efficient and effective. And so I would maybe defer to Haley or others that have been on those committees and that can better inform us. My understanding at the time was there was overlap and it made sense. But
Yep, that's my understanding as well. Yes, Haley, would you like to contribute to the conversation?
Yes, I would agree with that there's overlap and there would be a good opportunity to combine outreach and training and maybe get more involvement in the one group and get more done without losing anything by combining them.
Michelle, I know I'm new to the board, but I'd be willing to help out wherever needed as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Travis.
Chair, this is Wally.
Hi.
Hi. I think based on the discussion, and I have participated in both committees for quite a while, especially in the past there. And I think when outreach started, the mission there was kind of for two things. Of course, the FirstNet concept was rolling out, which that required a lot of outreach, informing local responders of what was coming and what was going to take some time to get in place, and now, of course, has more or less been completed in that first 5-year segment. And then the other piece, obviously, was the coming of the ISIC system. At the point where publicly they had selected a vendor and were moving forward with the construction. And I think now that those big projects are in place, that mission has morphed a little. And so again, part of outreach includes training. You need to train someone, make them aware of what's there, and then that in itself helps people make the decision about which way to proceed. So I just thought I'd throw those comments in there and definitely support the whatever the board's decision is. But I would say I'd recommend that the committees combine as you were discussing. So.
Great. Thank you for those comments. Appreciate it. Is anyone opposed to putting those two committees together?
Michelle,
Right.
Chair Fane.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just asking, do you need a motion to do that?
I don't think that we do, but I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Well, I'll make that
way
motion if you want one.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
We'll second that.
Excellent. All those in favor? Motion by saying
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. Are there any other topics to be shared? I guess just to give an update on the item that I gave informed the board about last time about Mid-American approaching the board, wanting to become a member, or not, maybe not a member, but inquiring about access. The last report was that we were going to draft a letter from the Attorney General's office to inquire greater detail about their desire. That letter has been sent, and to my knowledge, we've not received a reply. So just that's the update. The letter's been sent. As I learn more, will continue to update the board, and there will be a full review process should we receive a letter back, and the committees will be involved in that to a varying degree. So it won't be the decision will not be made in isolation. Are there any other reports? All right, let's move on with our standard reports. ISIC System Administrator, Scott Richardson.
Thank you, Chair Bischoff. I'll start off with ISIC's maintenance. This week, Motorola performed a core security patch update that was completed on Tuesday. There was a minimal downtime with that for radio end users. That was actually less than 1 minute, however. Also, that will be performed quarterly from this point forward. And again, each quarter it should result in about a 1 minute downtime for radio end users. However, I will send out notifications before that time arrives. The annual RF maintenance on ISIC sites continues. We've got 8 sites scheduled in northern Iowa between now and April 5th. And I will continue to forward on updated RFPM site schedules as they become available. We did have a lightning strike at the Waterloo site a couple weeks ago, and that has caused some damage to the site. However, the site is still operational. We had some microwave links that we need to do some work on, as well as some tower lights and possibly a generator issue. So more updates to come on that as we get things repaired. As some of you may know, ISIC has been going through a CISA cybersecurity assessment over the last several months. We are now in the closing phases of that, and we should have a final report in the next few weeks, which I can then share information from after we get that report and digest it. Beyond that, I've got ISIC's numbers for February. Our radios at the end of February stand at 32,160. That is up 46 from January of 23. Our talk groups are now at 2,916. That is up 44 from January. And our push to talks for February was at 2,371,108, and that is up 88,950 from January. And currently on the system now, we're looking at 5,315 radios on the system as I speak. And that concludes my reports. I will take any questions.
Great, thank you, Scott. Are there any questions for Scott? Great. FirstNet Authority, John Olson. John Olson is unable to be with us today. He did want to share that he will be attending a in-person engagement on the evening of Monday, March 13th in Carroll, Iowa, and the FirstNet board subcommittee in person on Thursday the 4th. Oh, that's our subcommittee on the 14th. So that's his update. Are there any questions that we can relay to John regarding the authority? Okay, AT&T update, Tyler Richard.
Yes, thank you. I don't have much of an update for this week. We didn't have any additional macro site installations from the site that I updated last month in Harvey. However, we are starting our RAGBRAI planning committee that forms within AT&T, and that also includes the network authority to start pre-planning the overnight stops. And once we have route information, that'll extend as well. We also have a few different team members from AT&T going to attend the FirstNet subcommittee meeting next week. We'll have our AVPs and also obviously Andy from our network team. So anyone available to join in person, it'd be great to see your faces and
have that experience in person. Otherwise, that is my update, and I'll take any questions.
Great, thank you, Tyler. Any questions for Tyler? CISA update, Chris Myers.
Thank you, Chair Bischoff. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Super, thank you. Thank you, Chair Bischoff, once again. Thank you, board, and good morning. Here's my report for the month of March. I apologize for the typo on the title slide. A sync issue seems to have gotten me. So we will move on to the first update for the month. This is a product that was just released earlier this week on the next slide. Let me know when you're ready, Holly. There we go. It is entitled Link Layer Authentication and Link Layer Encryption, Are You Really Secure? This is a paper that was released based on some feedback that we actually have from the field, from actual radio systems out there. This paper starts with a case study that comes out of state of Ohio, in which they had some unauthorized access to the radio system, and very, very highly describes some of the steps they had to do to mitigate that. This white paper explains a current technology called link layer authentication and a future technology, which is link layer encryption. Both of these are or will be a part of the P25 radio system standard suite, and both will be available as a system or a radio subscriber unit add-on feature. We'll start off with link layer encryption. This has existed dating back to 2005 in its first iteration and was updated in 2011. This is a feature that prevents radio spoofing and reduces the likelihood of a cloned radio getting access to a radio network. And it does so by using a unique key that's put in a radio that the system will then challenge the radio with when they try to affiliate. So essentially what happens is the radio tries to jump onto the system says, prove to me who you actually are, and then allows access going forward if it gets a valid response. If it doesn't get a valid response, the radio is rejected, and then at that point, the radio does not have access. Link layer encryption is in standards development, and what this will do is this will use similar encryption that's used on the networks like ISIX for voice communication, and it will use that same type of encryption to encrypt the control channel. The control channel is used to communicate with the radios behind the scenes, and right now that communication is in the clear. The link layer encryption standard, as it stands today and once it's done and implemented, will encrypt that type of communication between the radios and the system. So this paper has been released. It is out there for your benefit and awareness. And again, keep in mind that these are optional features that systems can decide to deploy or not deploy. It really depends on where a state or a system owner would want to proceed. But I did want to make the board and its stakeholders aware that this document has been published, and it does offer a lot of good background technical information on those two technologies that'll be a part of P25 standards. On the next slide, I do want to kind of go over another product that came out recently. This is a feature article called Ensuring Next Generation 911 Interoperability. This was released on March 2nd and outlines a very collaborative and cooperative effort between government and private stakeholders to really develop and implement a 911 testing interoperability program along with some level of certification. The goal of this program is to enhance the efficacy of 911 as a whole and focus on improving interoperability across 911 platforms at the state and local levels. This is also going to take a look at agencies that may be transitioning to NG 911 and try to also accommodate newer services used by 911 callers, dispatchers, and also first responders that are in the field. This article is available on the DHS Science and Technology website, and it was sent out with a news blast that I send out routinely. If you've not yet received a copy of this article and you would like one, please let me know, and I will get it to you as quick as I can. So on the next slide, we do have another document that was released earlier this week. It's called Cybersecurity Services for 911 Centers. This is basically an aggregation of CISA services that are available for PSAPs, dispatch centers, emergency communication centers, whatever they choose to be named, but it outlines things that are brought to the table by CISA's cybersecurity advisors and emergency communication coordinators. This can include various assessments and tools that are available at no cost to those agencies cybersecurity awareness posters and programs, such as the DDoS poster that was recently distributed to, or the PDoS posters that were recently distributed to PSAPs in Iowa, cybersecurity awareness webinars, and other types of national cyber awareness products that are available, along with an incident reporting system. This document is available as well for download from CISA's website. It was sent out, but if you would like a copy, please let me know and I will get it to you. On the next slide, I do want to talk about a few things that are happening out there in addition to some of the products, but also our website has been updated. CISA.gov version 2 was just released in late February, and this is an updated and revamped website with the goal of it being simpler to navigate. There is a bunch of resources listed on the CISA website, and the thought process behind this was to try to aggregate things together and make it easier to find, and also reflect the philosophy of One CISA, in which CISA operates as a collective whole to better serve our stakeholders. Now, you may have noticed in January and February that the amount of products coming out from CISA slowed slightly. That was done in anticipation of this website's release, so that everything could be categorized, qualified, and then also sent back out under the new web format for stakeholders to easily find whatever it is they may be looking for. Now that this website is out, the cadence of product releases from CISA should continue on as it always has. So look for more good things coming out of CISA here in the next several months as those products are released. I do want to let Iowa know that the SAFECOM nationwide survey is still coming. On the next slide, we have had a slight delay with the release of that survey. With this survey, we are working to update it to better accommodate some needs of tribal nations that are located throughout the U.S. The planned deployment remains unchanged, though, is that eligible agency personnel will get an email from sns@cisa.dhs.gov to take the survey. I would encourage everybody here that if you do get that email, you should take that survey, because this data will be used to get a collective scrape of where communication stands across the country, and this will be used to help develop CISA products and also possibly guide grant programs in the future. So there may be some future money tied to these responses. So I'd encourage everybody within Iowa that's eligible to take the survey to take it. We would like to see a lot of rural communities represented with these responses. So keep an eye out for that. It should be coming in the next couple of months. I had a chance to preview a version of it, and filling it out a couple of different ways, I was able to get through the survey within about 30 to 60 minutes. So plan on budgeting that amount of time, and we look forward to hearing back from everybody that takes this response. The next slide, I want to talk about a couple of items that are out there as well. CISA strategic goals. This was just released a couple of weeks ago. And it outlines a couple of key tenets for CISA related to cyber defense, risk reduction and resilience, and operational collaboration. And also, you heard me mention this before, agency unification with the concept of One CISA, where we try to make sure that all of our product portfolios are available to everybody on demand. CISA has several advisors that serve the state of Iowa, myself, along with Chris Judge, who's a protective security advisor, and Jim Hoffland, who is a cybersecurity advisor. All of these products are offered by the individuals, as said before, and they're available at no cost to agencies to utilize to see how they feel fit. On the next slide, a couple of regional items of note for everybody. We do have some courses that are being delivered regionally that are open for regional attendance. We are concluding our deliveries for the NFL draft coming up in late April. This will be a communications technician that's open for regional attendance. There will be 3 ComL courses available at Fort Leonard Wood, several communications courses listed at St. Francis County, Missouri at the EOC, which include CompT, INTD, and ComL. These will be delivered in the May to July timeframe. And one item of note is an ITSL course for the state of Kansas. That is open for regional attendance as well. There have not been many ITSL courses available within the confines of Region 7, which includes Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, and Missouri in the past. And the SWIC there has made a statement that it is open for regional attendance if anybody would like to take that course. On the next slide, we do have some CISA leadership that will be in the state. I mentioned last month that Region 7 Deputy Director Ethan Cole would be with me today. We're going to take a tour of a couple of communication sites and facilities. Unfortunately, we were not able to get him to the board meeting in person today due to weather, but we'll see if we can get that scheduled in the future. In April, it's expected that Communications Central Sector Chief Chris Essed will be in Iowa, and he would be liking to attend the 911 Council meeting and the ISIX board meeting, and then meeting with some stakeholders as well. So on the next slide, I'm open to take some questions, but I did also want to pass on some information from a neighboring state. State of Nebraska in Furnace County had a communication site that recently collapsed due to one of the guy wires being severed. An investigation is ongoing there to determine the cause and motivations of the person that did that. But I wanted to make everybody aware to be vigilant about threats that are out there that may pose a potential impact on our communications infrastructure. Our networks are tended to be built very resilient and secure, but there's always things that you need to be mindful of. And hopefully you can take this information of that incident in Furnace County, maintain awareness of those threats that are out there, and be proactive and act accordingly. With that, that'll conclude my report, Chair Bischoff. I can go ahead and take any questions.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Patrick Updike has a question regarding link layer encryption. Patrick?
Yeah, thanks. So, Chris, if you encrypt your control channel, does that effectively shut down Scanner World and those people, like maybe a patrol vehicle that has an auxiliary scanner in their vehicle to monitor other things that they wouldn't normally put in their typical radio setup?
Right. So typically, well, first of all, keep in mind that link layer encryption is still in standards development and is not a product that is yet available for purchase or implementation. So that's a couple years down the road. However, what you talk about with scanners monitoring a trunked network such as ISIX, those scanners typically operate by reading the control channel and looking for key things such as talk group IDs that are going to be active and then receiving audio on that site. So to answer your question in short, it would likely impact the scanners that are currently out there in the field because they would no longer be able to monitor that control channel if link layer encryption were implemented on a system. So does that answer your question?
Yep. Thanks.
Are there any other questions for Chris? Moving on, information sharing framework update, Blake DeRushi.
And I have 0 updates on that.
All right, very well. That brings us to old business. Does anyone have any old business? Hearing none. New business. As was mentioned earlier, Rob is unable to be with us today. The two user applications that we have before us is Hancock County. This is an upgrade from level 4 to level 3. They're adding the site in April, and the user group committee recommends approval. Item 2 is the Department of Corrections, North Central Correctional Facility 2. They are asking for 14 talk groups, 9 master controls plus 5 facility specific, 4 radios now, 74 radios within 5 years. The UGC recommends approval. I will entertain a motion for 18A, 1 and 2.
Ness moves.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Benson will second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Same sign. Motion
Chair
carries.
Bischoff, I'm going to abstain from that vote. Sorry.
Certainly. No worries. Thanks, Patrick. That brings us to public comment. Before I go to public comment, is there any other new business? That brings us to public comment. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak? Hearing none, that brings us to adjournment. Thank you all for your attendance, and we will